Ladies and gentlemen, as we begin our services, if we can please kindly turn off all cell phones or electronic devices, or please place them on silent. Thank you.
I need to take a breath. Typically, I would be starting with a prayer from Psalms, but instead I'm just going to introduce myself. So many of you I know, so many of you I don't know. My name is Steve Friedman, and I'm a friend. And I'm a friend who has been entrusted to craft this service today and to honor Larry's memory. To be entrusted to do this, I can't begin to express what this means to me. So I need to get that out of the way first before I continue. So, Randy, Ronnie, thank you. Going to begin with Psalm 121. Psalm 121 is a psalm where the focus is on God's protection and care and also our trust in God. It's often known as the traveler's prayer. Certainly, Larry is on a new journey. Don't know where, but he is on his way. So let me read that prayer to you now. I turn my eyes to the mountains. From where will my help come? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your guardian will not slumber. See, the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. Adonai is your guardian. Adonai is your protection and your right hand. By day the sun will not strike you, nor the moon by night. Adonai will guard you from all harm. God will guard your life. Adonai will guard your going and coming, now and forever. So, I've introduced myself, and I have a couple of thoughts for you to begin with. Better? Thank you. Judaism, foremost in Judaism, is a focus on family and on community. The community that I see in front of me today, to honor Larry, I think Larry would be blown away by this. We're here to support our mourners. We're also here to support each other. As a friend just said to me a moment ago, for me, for us, this is personal. Ronnie had asked that I share some memories of Larry. And I can't do that within not going back in our history a bit. It could be almost 4 decades ago that my wife Jamie and I met, developed on its own. In some organic fashion, we were attached to one another and became friends and are still friends to this day. Larry and Ronnie being part of that. And we socialized together. We socialized as a group. We socialized as couples. We socialized as husbands. We socialized as wives. Wives going off and doing lunch and doing what wives do at lunch. Guys going to lunch, doing what guys do. Typically, in our case, descending into boys will be boys stuff. You know what I mean. We met as couples, and we cemented and forged a relationship. And during the course of those years, we celebrated with one another, we laughed with one another, we cried with one another, we commiserated with one another, we were together. During that time, we all got a sense of each other, our individualness. So I'm here to talk about Larry's individualness, and I came up with a lot of adjectives, not enough to remember because I can't remember yesterday anymore. But when I think about Larry, the first word that comes up is inimitable, because Larry was, you knew what you got with Larry, okay? Larry was steady. Larry was reliable. Larry was realistic. Larry was centered. Larry was stable. And as time went on, Larry became courageous. So, as I just mentioned, our relationship was a mixture of people. But as we all aged together and we all faced the challenges of aging, my relationship with Larry changed as well. We both had our stuff. We both had our challenges. But we found that we also had each other. There was not a week that went by if we weren't involved in socialization or the regular stuff that Larry didn't pick up the phone and check in to see how I was doing. And similarly, I reciprocated. So that my relationship with Larry was forged on that commonality that comes with going through life experience together. Over the last couple of years, we watched very closely Larry handle those extreme challenges in life. Those of us in the room, many of us in the room last year in Scottsdale, watched what Larry and Ronnie went through together. And with it all of those adjectives that I just mentioned to you were there. He took it everything in stride. Larry consistently was all those things that I mentioned and more. Fast forward to this year, the challenges became greater. I mentioned to you earlier that our friends, our guy friends, I'm going to just take an aside for a moment, because while in the middle of the Kriya ceremony, talking about how our lives have changed, how the fabric of our lives have changed, those guy friends, about a week or so ago, have decided to all get together, and we're going to do that for lunch on Friday. Except, like the mourners, something's missing. Larry's going to be missing. Tough, really tough. But that's life. So Larry handled it all. He handed it all to the end. And he's my hero with it all. Now, as prescribed by our tradition, I'm going to read a couple of readings to you. One, a psalm that you'll all be familiar with, and the other, some words known as a sacred pilgrimage. So if you will. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination, and life is a journey. From childhood to maturity, and youth to age, from innocence to awareness, and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion, and then perhaps back to wisdom, from weakness to strength, or strength to weakness, and back, we pray, to health again. From offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, and grief to understanding. From fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies, not at some high place along the way, but having made the journey stage by stage together. A sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination, and life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage to life everlasting. The next prayer, coming from Psalms, of course, you all know, is the 23rd Psalm. I would suggest to you, when we get to that line that says, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death," to be sure, in its essence, it means that God is with us. But I'd also submit to you that during this time of grief and sorrow, that we're all walking through that valley and that shadow of death. Ultimately, together, come back into the light with each other's help. So if you will please join me. Let's see if I can find it. Oh, I know it by heart, okay? The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. My cup, our cup, runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy will follow us all the days of our lives, and we will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Thank you. Okay, so I've talked about family, and I've talked about friends, and now is the time for those who are going to share their thoughts and their memories and their love and their caring for our Larry. And Ronnie is going to begin. Are there? Yes, yes, they are. I've got them for you.
I'm going to try my best to get through this. So, you could say I fell in love with Larry the first time I met him at the elevator in Park Drive Manor 57 years ago. I was 24, an old maid by standards in those days. So I had kissed a lot of frogs by then, but I knew a prince when I met one. It was the first day I moved into an apartment with my dear friend Eileen, right across the hall from Larry. I had actually heard about him from another friend who had been in love with Larry earlier that same year and who bowed out of a trip we were supposed to take together to be with him. Ironically, that turn of events led me to moving into Park Drive Manor. It just so happened I learned later that Larry lived in Park Drive Manor as well. After careful strategizing on my part, Larry and I eventually became close friends at our apartment swim club, and months later, we started dating. Larry impressed me on that first date with his kindness, courtesy, and as you can imagine, his fully laid out plans for a perfect evening. From the get-go, we could just talk and talk and talk. Getting to actually date him, he surpassed my expectations and my fantasies. 10 months after our first official date, on October 12th, we were married, the happiest day of my life, and save for a pending storm 2 days ago, the saddest. Setting into my new apartment was so easy as we just moved my things across the hall. Larry turned out to be an even better husband. From the get-go, life was a never-ending joyride with him, easily making friends with his straightforward charm, congeniality, sense of humor, and easy conversation. Traveling the world with the most fun and easy companion turned out to be some of our most treasured moments. After 3 blissful years, we moved from Philly to Delaware County, where Larry worked, and eventually we crossed the bridge to Cherry Hill. We were a great team. As I always said, Larry did numbers and I did words. Larry did the money and I did the household repairs. I learned very quickly that I was the designated Mrs. Fix-It. When packing up to move, Larry caused a blackout in our whole 12-story apartment building trying to take a light fixture out of the ceiling. Did you know that?
No.
And when a shelf of glassware that he had installed before I knew him came crashing to the floor. We shared household chores equally, and never did I hear a no or a complaint from him. After every single dinner I ever prepared, I got a thank you and a kiss. He thought I was the best cook on the planet. There's no accounting for taste, but I was grateful for everyone. Every morning my place was set for breakfast. When I came into the kitchen, I always had it so easy with Larry, and I always knew I was blessed. As a dad, there was nothing he wouldn't do for Randy. He coached Little League Baseball because he wanted fairness, patience, and kindness, and nothing but fun for the kids, his kid. He went to every game Randy ever played in any sport, so that one time at a 7th grade floor hockey game, even though we kept very quiet, he said, "Dad, you don't have to come to every game." And as I was in the kitchen doing dishes after dinner every night, I could hear laughter, cheers, banging, and pure fun coming from the basement as they played football, hockey, and whatever sport or game you could play together in a basement. Larry could get along with anybody. As an accountant, he spent a long career in business as a CFO, being highly respected not only by his bosses, but also loved by those for whom he was the boss. In Centennial Mill, he played an active role in the Finance Committee, 7 years on the Board of Trustees, and 4 of them serving as president. Larry had a pretty easy run during a difficult period of transition because of his easy, congenial nature. He organized and ran his beloved Wednesday night poker game, to which he invited every new male resident that he ever met. I think everyone who knew him will agree that Larry never complained about anything, even in the past few years when he seemed to face one serious health challenge after another. He took every single one in his stride, and at any time he was ever asked how he was doing, he gave the same answer: "I'm fine." When he went through cancer treatment 7 years ago, he woke up every single morning, opened his eyes, and announced, "I feel good today." It's true. He had a great sense of humor, too. Even at the end, when someone asked him if he saw the light when his heart stopped during an endoscopy, he said, "I didn't see a white light, but I saw 72 virgins." I said that was good because he hadn't seen one in a long time. My sweetheart. I will miss my breakfast place, set in place every morning with every item in my breakfast neatly laid out on the table. I will miss being thanked by you and kissed for every single dinner I ever prepared for us. I will miss turning around from the sink every night to find a completely cleared off and cleaned off table and counters and everything put away. I will miss your reminders not to forget the many things that I would have left behind without them. I will miss your offer through every Phillies or Eagles game to mute the sound so I could read or watch whatever else I wanted. Just for the record, I didn't take him up on that one ever, but he still asked except during playoffs, every night. I will miss our walks on the boardwalk in the summer and our hikes in the Arizona mountains in the winter. I will miss your asking me how I slept, how my day was, and what I had for dinner or lunch when I went out without you, even when in the past few weeks you were unable to eat lunch or dinner yourself. I will miss your endless counting of everything from how many seats in a big venue to how many poker players showed up every Wednesday night. I will miss your showing me your love for me every single day in every way possible, but I know it will not stop here. I will carry that blessing forever. Larry, you were the best father, friend, colleague, boss, son, brother, brother-in-law, father-in-law, son-in-law, and most of all, best husband I could have ever imagined. You fulfilled my teenage fantasies of what a marriage should be like, and I know I was blessed to have you as my best friend, lover, and soulmate for 56 years. I love you.
I was supposed to help her. Oh, man.
I'm not sure who is next, whether it be Mark. It is Mark. Please, Mark Wolkoff.
What Steve said. I don't have I don't have the words to describe Larry's character, but Steve did it better than I could do it. He was a true friend in every way, every meaning of the word. When I told my daughter Lauren about Larry, she sent me an email and wrote, "Hi, Dad, thinking of you. I'm sure you are missing Larry a lot. He was a great friend to you. It's amazing how long you've been in each other's lives." And actually, it was about 50 years, 50 good ones, really good ones. Well, those words express my feelings today. I choose to remember the things about Larry that make me smile. I always considered him to be highly sensible. After all, he was an accountant. He probably wore a pocket protector at work. When we would, I can't get away without these. When we went out to eat, he was the one, if we had to check the bill for accuracy and figured out how much each of us owed if we had to divide the bill into anything more than two parts. When I needed a pen to sign the bill or a check, I would ask Larry if he had a pen, and of course he always had one. He would, with a straight face, ask how I could get dressed without a pen. Larry, today I came prepared. And regardless of the amount of the bill, he somehow always had the exact necessary denominations of bills to pay his share. And the bills in his wallet were arranged in numerical order: the 20s, the 10s, the 5s, the 1s. Even when he drove, Larry always picked the most efficient route to get from point A to point B. This caused me a great deal of grief because Sherry continually chastised me for not driving as efficiently as Larry. Although, as those of you who have driven with us know, Sherry doesn't usually have much to say about my driving. Many of you know that Larry's email address was remnewton, REMNEWTON. Years ago, I asked Larry, my sensible accountant friend, what that stood for. He told me that there used to be a popular children's TV show in Philadelphia in the 50s featuring cartoons and a puppet character called Willie the Worm. While this sounded like a preposterous name for a TV show, even to me, I figured, well, Philly. When it was time to show a cartoon, Willie would always yell, "Roll 'em, Newton," and to some offstage puppet, never seen, assistant. This all tickled me to no end, so I frequently addressed him as Newton, and the name stuck. And Ronnie, of course, became Mrs. Newton, and Larry's mom was Mother Newton. And while we're on the topic of emails, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, Larry always ended his emails with the oddly formal closing, "Regards." When we both lived in Cherry Hill, Larry and I would walk daily, unless there was snow or ice on the sidewalk. We walked at a pretty good clip and discussed everything. Despite what Ronnie and Sherry might think, we never ran out of words. And not surprisingly, Larry always knew the exact distance we had walked. I was always envious that Larry could talk to anybody about anything. He was so well informed. I mean, we'd talk about things and he'd say, "I saw in the paper yesterday on page 13, that's whatever." He knew it all. Before we retired, we both took our summer vacations the last week of the summer at the Jersey Shore, which was essentially our summer camp. We played beach volleyball, horseshoes, and quoits every day. Guess who always kept the score? Our neighbor, Steve Branch, was one of our playmates. One day we played volleyball in an absolute pouring rain. No one else was on the beach. When we were finished, Larry drove Steve back to Steve's house in Margate. Ronnie and Steve's wife, Carol, were talking on the phone when Larry and Steve pulled up, soaking wet. Carol announced to Ronnie, "Here comes Dumb and Dumber." It's a testament, to Larry's character that I told Sherry and our kids that if anything ever happens to me, what could happen to me? Larry is one of a very small group of people they could ask for advice or guidance. Or if they ever needed to know the correct time, they could always ask Larry because he checked his watch no less than 10 times an hour, while at the same time cleaning his eyeglasses. Larry was not fond of spicy ethnic foods, which I adored. He would always tell me I shouldn't eat all those goofy spices. Of course, I totally ignored him, but he was probably right about that. Like I said, my friend Larry was a very sensible person. I'm going to miss him. Regards, Newton.
Alan.
Wow, a lot of people here. No surprise. It's tough to follow all that's been said, I got to tell you. think I'm going third because I've known Larry for less years than Mark and certainly less years than Ronnie. It's about 40 years. My name is Alan Pepper, and I live about 100 feet from Larry and Ronnie's home. I've known them, like I said, for about 40 years. I've had lots of experiences and adventures with Larry. And needless to say, he was a very consistent man through all these years. Not a man of surprises, but rather someone you could always count on for help and friendship. Larry lived a healthy life, avoiding rich and spicy foods, and often chiding those who did the opposite. He was risk-averse. He lived cautiously and conservatively, and by all measures, his life was taken too soon. In these days immediately following Yom Kippur, I find it compelling to share what our rabbi gave us a sermon on that day. While the liturgy speaks of one's fate being sealed on that day, and that by basically living a good life like Larry did will extend your days. It wasn't the case with Larry, but she offered a clarification that the length of one's life is indeed random and not influenced by whether they were good people or not. So while it may seem unfair that Larry left us too soon, she offered a dose of reality and has given me much solace when I think of Larry. If I had to summarize my friend Larry in a few words, I would say, always interested in what I had to say, and of course anyone who he was with. So he was a very good listener and a loyal friend, and he always had a response to what you said. He was listening. A very social guy who enjoyed being with people and as a result had tons of friends. More interested in talking about money management than gourmet food, but I still enjoyed his company. A very conservative poker player. So whenever he raises, don't even think about what to do, just go out. A very loyal and loving husband to his wife, Ronnie. Always looking at his watch and checking the time, regardless of whether he had somewhere to go or not. He scheduled his activities and organized everything in great detail and down to the minute. A walking, talking appointment book. Larry and I worked together in Delaware at the same time for a couple of years, and we met every Tuesday during that time at a Vietnamese restaurant. Our conversations were often about our experiences in the Army for the 6-month assignments that we both had. I'll just say the best thing about being in the Army as two Jewish guys who had absolutely no interest whatsoever in guns, gas masks, and Army life, is having an endless supply of laughable and usually absurd experiences. For example, Larry learned that by bringing a kosher salami to his sergeant, it made his life so much easier. On the other hand, we had many stories of anti-Semitic experiences that we both endured. My most memorable experience with Larry was a Grand Canyon whitewater trip to the Colorado River, organized by his brother Dennis. Larry brought his son Randy, and I brought my 2 sons. Easily one of the most wonderful and exciting things I've ever done in my life, and seared in my memory forever. Thank you, Dennis. Another trip organized by Dennis was a trip to Big Sky, Montana. Randy came along, as did my younger son, Jeremy. Randy, Jeremy, and I hiked up and down a mountain for the entire afternoon. Larry chose to go horseback riding, and his underside was never the same, since he clearly made the wrong decision and didn't join us. But that's where Jeremy and I really got to know Randy, and a shout out to Randy for being such a great guy. It was another in a series of wonderful memories that I had with Larry, where we had so many enjoyable times. So goodbye to a wonderful friend, and one that I will sorely miss.
Hi. Let me see which way I will choose to read this. Wow. I have no problems with public speaking whatsoever. I will say my dry runs today were pretty rough. I had a tough time keeping it together, so forgive me if I don't keep my composure. I want to start by thanking everyone for being here. The support from everyone in this room today has been overwhelming. As you're aware, the last 2 months have been extraordinarily difficult. To be 3 hours away, not only proved to be physically taxing, but it created an emotional burden that was really difficult to bear at times. In my time visiting over the last several weeks, the amount of visitors, calls, texts, well wishes, acts of kindness from everyone in this room, it was astonishing. I have been brought to tears, which is not so hard apparently, on multiple occasions by the profound gestures and thoughtful words from so many people in this room. Impressive as the sheer outpouring of support has been, what struck me even more was the depth of concern, the genuine affection and encouragement so many of you have provided to my mom and dad. My dad passed away last Friday, 2 days before my parents' anniversary. He fought so hard. He never once complained. I'm so grateful to have been with him, and that he was with his wife, he was with his son, he was with his brother. Thank you again for gifting me with the peace of mind to know that my parents were shrouded in love and support every day on this journey. Each of you are so lucky to be a part of such a beautiful community of friends. I can only hope to one day have such an extended support system. To my friends, I know I tend to be more private, a little more internal than my parents, but I'm blessed to have the security of knowing you're always there for me. My dad always loved you guys. To my dear Aunt Linda, where you are, you're the true warrior, having just lost your beloved husband, Uncle Bob, only weeks before. You walked down that same Cooper hallways to be there for my mom in her time of need. Pretty much further solidifying yourself as one of the greatest humans that I know. Mostly I'd like to thank my wife, Nicole. You've been so loving and supported during this emotional time. You're the calm in my storm. I love you deeply. So, with that all said, by now we've heard the love story, the fairy tale marriage. It was real. I saw it. I was there. We've heard how great a friend he is. You guys all know that. Thank you so much, Mark and Alan, for your beautiful and kind words, and Steve, about my dad. Larry was so many things, a loving, devoted husband, a dedicated, loyal brother and son, an amazing friend. He was kind and thoughtful and honorable, a good person, the embodiment of a mensch. Larry was an accountant, as we've mentioned, and from calculating a tip to his stock club to his participation in Centennial Mills committees and governance, he loved anything financial. For me, most importantly, Larry was my dad. And would you know, he was an amazing father. As mentioned, I was born into a true love affair. I'm so fortunate to have had tremendous role models. Thank you, Mom. Some dads strive to come to their kids' baseball games. My dad was the coach. He had no experience. I remember him going to the Cherry Hill Library, researching coaching techniques, getting a bunch of books. I always assumed he just wanted to coach to simply be involved. My mom had recently shared his other motivation was to ensure the kids had fun, and that was my dad. When I took karate, my dad didn't just cheer me on. He joined the adult classes. He took karate too. He wasn't as good as I was, but he stuck with it for a while. He just poured himself into my interests. When I was 10 years old, I started my first job delivering the Cherry Hill News. And then I made the big show delivering the Philadelphia Inquirer around Surrey Place East. On snowy, rainy days, my dad would be up with me at 6 in the morning, rubber banding and bagging the newspapers, sometimes even driving me around to safely get the job done. As mentioned, for anyone who knows my dad, timeliness was important. An hour before any dinner reservation, you could almost see my dad's wheels turning as he calculated the exact time we'd need to leave. He would gently corral me and my mom out the door, never expressing frustration with the fact that my mom and I would never seem to catch on. Probably never will at this point. As a kid, I relied on such a consistent schedule. My dad would come home from work at 6 o'clock every night, kiss my mom, then he'd head upstairs to take his suit off. He'd lay on the top of the sheets of the bed for maybe 5 minutes in his underwear, just kind of taking a minute, and then he'd come downstairs. After dinner was our special time. As we quickly cleared the table, my mom wrapped up the dishes, my dad and I would do our thing. We'd wrestle in the living room, pretending to be various dinosaurs that I, was really into at the time. Kicking field goals with a Nerf football up the basement steps, knocking out all the ceiling tiles in the process. Oh my God. And later playing intense games of ping pong. As a young teen, I even managed, I don't know if you guys remember this, I even managed to build a small hockey arena in my basement, and my dad and I would play. Full hockey sticks, tennis ball flying around, the banging, the screaming. I'm sure my mom loved it. It was a blast. Over the last several weeks, I've been flush with too many childhood memories to even begin to recount today. My dad was simply the best. When I left for college, my parents became empty nesters. This is when my mom and dad's passion for travel really took flight. As I began to spread my wings, finding out who I was, it was so rewarding to see my parents gallivanting around the globe, from African safaris to Alaskan adventures, to most of Europe in between. Many of these trips forged the very friendships here today in this room. Interspersed with travels abroad, my parents discovered Arizona, spending the better part of 2 decades enjoying the hiking, the scenery, the culture of Scottsdale. In typical fashion, my mom and dad cultivated new lifelong friendships in their home away from home. My dad and I, as mentioned, Alan mentioned it, along with his brother, Uncle Dennis, set out on our own adventures, whitewater rafting the Colorado River, laying out under the stars on the floor of the Grand Canyon. These are once-in-a-lifetime memories, some that many people will never be able to have. In recent years, Nicole and I have had the privilege to join my parents several times in Arizona, and most memorably, we celebrated our 5th and my parents' 50th anniversary on an unforgettable Mediterranean cruise. My dad loved the beach, Mark has mentioned. Our time in Margate was special. He would spend his summers playing volleyball, mastering horseshoes. I remember him just lugging 3 beach chairs, a water cooler, a sack of horseshoes every day to the beach, every day. So yeah, my dad certainly enjoyed having fun, and he had various interests, as we've discussed. But his main hobby was my mom and I. He relished in our little family's successes. My dad's love for me was unconditional. He offered, never imposed advice. He gave me the space to make my own decisions and mistakes. I may have overindulged in the latter. He never judged. He allowed me to take risks. My dad gave me the space to find my way with an ever-present sense of a safety net. Dad, Mom and I are now live without a net. We're going to be okay. Although I remain a work in progress, you taught me how to be a good husband, a caring son. You provided for us, but you cultivated independence. You led by example in every area of life. You fostered the resilience and love that will carry us through this incredibly difficult time. And as you and Mom did for each other, we will hold each other up and persevere. Your memory is a blessing and much more. I don't have to tell you that I will make you proud because I already know you are. I don't have to say how much I love you because I already know you know. Thank you.
I need to let that sink in a little bit. So we're nearing the end of our service. I don't need to thank you all for being here and listening and supporting. In the aftermath of our service, we'll be going to Locust Wood for interment, and then after that, back at Ronnie's house for the beginning of Shiva, which over the next couple of days will be both tonight and tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, and again tomorrow starting at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 2 to 5, yeah, something like that. So please feel free to come and visit and continue your support. Her address, by the way, a lot of you know, they live around the corner, huh? Which is at 12 Hopkins, is it Lane or Court? Street, right, of course. Okay. Yeah. So, finally, the last of my duties today is to, typically this would be done, would be chanted by cantor. I am not that. And so I'm going to read the El Rachamim, and if you'll please stand and this is a prayer that is designed, it's asking for God to care and protect Larry's soul into eternity. He's got a really good start. God, full of compassion, you dwell in the heights and in the depths. Grant perfect rest under your wings to Larry, who has entered eternity. Let him find refuge in your shadow, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. May he rest in peace. And let us say, Amen. Thank you all. Please be seated.
And I'll ask if we can rise once more, please. You may be seated, please.